Yeah, with that, I just kick it off with a couple of words from my side. That you know why I'm speaking here. I'm Daniel from Plug and Play, so part of the ventures team at Startup Autobahn. And actually, both companies here, Flip and SwipeGuide, are portfolio companies of Plug and Play. Both have been in the program or will be in the program soon, Startup Autobahn, and it's a very like same target group, and we'll hear about it in a second why we thought it makes sense to have a chat together. And since we never had a chat together, we said let's do it in the session here, and let some people join. Okay, but before we kick it off, maybe Anne-Kathrin, Wilhelmine, please tell us everything about you, but not about your startup. So everything which came before you started a company would be interesting, just to get to know a little bit. Who are you? What led to founding a company?
Okay, I can start. My name's Anne-Kathrin Stärke. Anne-Kathrin Stärke. My way to Flip is, I would say, quite interesting, or rather unconventional. I started after my master's after doing my master's degree in finance. I started working in Daimler. There we worked on a great project called Startup Autobahn. We then were looking for a partner to run this project with that was within business innovation. And we came across Plug and Play, and we thought, hey, this company looks really cool. These guys, they know what they do. So let's try and get them to Stuttgart and help us set up Startup Autobahn and run it in a professional way. And that was in 2016. I then decided to leave Daimler and join Plug and Play. That's where I also met Daniel, met you there, and I was part then of the Plug and Play team initially in Stuttgart, moved to Berlin to launch another open innovation platform, Beyond 1435, with Deutsche Bahn, Siemens, Bombardier, and SBB. And I was part of the ventures team as well, mobility ventures team in Plug and Play. I left Plug and Play in 2018 and did innovation consulting for 2 more years in Berlin, and then moved back to Stuttgart for Flip. So my journey began in a large corporation and then became smaller and smaller with corporate corporate accelerators and early stage investment teams, and then also innovation consulting. And now I am the head of growth in Flip, and that's a fantastic job and a really cool journey, I think.
Right, so you're going big again. Every week it seems like, if I check your LinkedIn, more people joining. But okay, cool. But I mean, same for you. Who are you?
Sure.
Start as early as you want.
Let's not do that. A great journey, and very interested in learning more about it. So hi, my name is Willemijn Snijder. I'm one of the founders of SwipeGuide. And I think easiest red thread is to just kind of tell what we do. So what we do as a company is we try to get the manufacturing industry to embrace the power of the crowdsourcing information and knowledge. And that ties me back into my background. So before SwipeGuide has already been quite a long journey, but my background lays predominantly in the development and commercialization of tech products that bring this transformative power of crowdsourcing, democratizing knowledge through crowdsourcing. Before SwipeGuide, I brought that to fintech, to several fintech startups in the Netherlands and clean tech companies. And currently, since 2016, since I met my co-founder Dan, a learning expert, we started collaborating, and now together with a founding team of about 5 people, we are bringing this to, let's say, technical documentation, critical operational knowledge. The company itself was founded as a revolution of user manuals and how-tos, and over time, because of how we're engineering crowdsourcing, has developed into a workforce productivity tool. And we feel that's very exciting. Personally, I come from the Netherlands, living west of Amsterdam, in a beautiful town called Haarlem, and I'm excited to talk more today about the workforce and what it can bring. So,
all right, So embarrassing. I didn't know there's an original Harlem. I guess that's the original one then.
The original Harlem, yeah. Unfortunately, it's that I once participated in a very nice matchmaking trip. What's it called? Harlem to Harlem. So that was a very interesting, let's say, startup technology match. Learned a lot from the trip. So yeah.
That would be a good idea for Stuttgart, but the other Stuttgart is a random town in the middle of nowhere in the US, so we can't do this down here, Ian. But yeah,
Correct.
okay. If you want, and if you have a general deck, or maybe a startup Autobahn audience-specific deck, why not walking through a pitch deck of you guys?
Sure.
Both of you. You want to kick it off, Wilhelmine?
Yeah, sure. Let's do so. Let's. So let's bring the team here up to speed with who we are and what we do. So let me just check in with you, Daniel. Is my screen coming online?
Yes, it works. And if someone in the audience, again, if you want to jump in, if you want to stage and jump in on one slide for whatever reason, please do so. Really happy to keep it interactive.
No, right. Absolutely. And I have a tendency to talk fast, so please interrupt me, because currently the only thing I see are my own beautiful slides, though, but I'd love to see some faces. So let's kick it off here. I'll give you a brief overview of who we are and what we do, and I hope really that acts as a jumping plate to have a conversation around. So introducing SwipeGuide, the European standard for digital standard work in manufacturing. SwipeGuide currently improves productivity and drives operational value for great manufacturing clients across the world, from Heineken to Coca-Cola to Fujifilm to Rayco Granning and ABB. All kinds and types of manufacturing industries with a specific process type in place. And since we've been focusing on this manufacturing industry, you can really see that the ease of use and scalability are important to productivity tools like ours. We've rolled out to over 225 shop floors in more than 89 countries. And since we started this, we've digitized over almost 48,000 standard operating procedures, which is massive. And our clients do that themselves. So let me tell you a little bit more. And I always like to take people on to a sort of a just imagine. So envision your future factory. We all envision a factory that is highly automated, because automation, that means less variation, less waste. And that means an increased sustainability and operating margin. And I think that's a future we all want to, believe in. But when I go to factories, and unfortunately it's been a while since I was allowed on site, this is what we come across. So technical documentation is still stuck in paper. You take a trip down memory lane, and what we see is that failing to have instant access to this kind of critical operational information causes errors, damages, and waste. You really see that work is still done in a variety of different ways, and that leads to unpredictability, variation, and variation causes money.
That's probably so jump in here. That's probably and that's just a guess. I mean, we chatted before, but that's probably the number one reason you get when you approach companies. We have paper and it works. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have actually they say we have paper and it doesn't work because paperwork instructions are impossible to track. We come across walking waste a lot. But unfortunately, even today, we were on the line with a factory for go live, and there was a safety incident that happened because people were not following the right instructions, or they were not trained properly. And that is what we come across often, a lot of safety and quality incidents because people are not up to date with the right information. And actually, when you look at knowledge, everything that you do for the first time, or that you don't do very often, or is complex, are processes or things where you need instructions for. And as we see also over time, is that classroom learning, it has proven not to work. So learning has to come within workflow, and that is what we forget. But I would say from the 225 factories we've digitized, I would say roughly 200 of them were working with paperwork instructions, whiteboards, and tribal knowledge. So I think there's a lot to gain in this instance. And when you look at the market, there's over 600,000 factories making your beer, bread, butter, cars, bikes, everything that you want. And can you imagine that you have to start a job at a factory like this, and then going back from your smartphone and everything that you're connected to today because you grew up on it, and then you go back to these kinds of information. Text-heavy paper instructions that are hard to find, difficult to understand, and as a company, I talk to people and they spend hours and hours on end making materials. Well, that's the daily reality, and it causes about 85% of all the issues that you see in production. Lack of standardization, bad instructions, and ineffective training. So that's the core problem that we're focusing on with SwipeGuide. We have developed a platform that is really focusing on crowdsourcing the best critical operational knowledge to your company. So what our platform does, it allows manufacturing companies to crowdsource and scale all of their critical operational knowledge across teams, across lines and sites, so they can build a global repository of all of their good practices to drive operational value. So in practice, you saw the Heineken bottles, a changeover procedure here in the Netherlands that saved about 20 minutes in the changeover procedure can be easily scaled with other locations of Heineken in the world where they have the same changeover procedure. And that is because we've put a lot of effort into the design of our apps together with universities around the world on instructional design. And they provide a very intuitive way to create enhanced reality work instructions in a couple of minutes. So in the crowdsourcing effect, we see that not people from centralized teams, but operators and engineers, they visualize, they standardize and execute these instructions and checklists, their digital SOPs, on via the apps on either their smartphones, their tablets, hopefully more wearable devices too, smart glasses we're fit for it too. And all of that is with real-time feedback and harvesting of improvements and tracking of critical controls. So going back to that same Just Imagine, going back to that same job, let's say I wanted you to imagine to start. This time around, instead of going back to paper instructions, you simply pick up a smartphone like it already is stuck to your hands for the rest of the day, and you simply scan a QR code or you click on the link in the work order, and then you immediately have access to all of your instructions, all of your tasks, basically all of the instructions, digital SOPs and checklists that you need to do your job right, without having to go through a lot of classroom training. And with live support in executing all of your routines and checks step by step, so you can reduce errors at the lines, improve your safety standards at the production line, and with everything that you do, because it's crowdsourced and the feedback goes into a central library, you're not just optimizing your own process, but you're optimizing the processes of every line in all of the factories for the company that you work in. I think this is the core element and important for the future. Is SwipeGuide is built for operators and engineers now, yes, but we're enhanced with the generative AI. So what the generative AI does is it automates the content creation process based upon the practices and the performances of the practice you've already executed. So it proactively recommends improvements on your standards based upon past results. Simply put, with SwipeGuide in the platform, it is very impossible to make a bad instruction or a bad digital SOP. And that allows operators and engineers at the line to focus on their primary task. So again, as I said, at SwipeGuide, we really believe that the biggest waste in manufacturing is the underutilized and under-recognized talent and expertise of people at the front lines. And we believe that every frontline worker is in essence a knowledge worker. And that's unlikely to say in the industry, but we strongly believe that every frontline worker can drive your operational performance, provided you empower them and augment them with the right tools. And that's why we've developed SwipeGuide. We believe it's a productivity tool that really finally makes sense. And I'm excited to talk more about it after Anne has introduced herself as well, of course. We're a very eclectic team, I would say, of about 30 people. We come from 14 different nationalities, and we work all across Europe. Yeah, thanks for listening in. And if you do have a question, please feel free to reach out to me in this call or after this call. I'm always happy to have an introduction chat, always curious about use cases that we come across. So yeah, excited to continue the conversation.
All right. I will put my email address in the chat. If someone wants to get in touch, contact me. Feel free to also put yours if you want, but you can also I get so much spam anyway because my email is out everywhere. So yeah, Ann-Kathrin, do you have any question for Wilhelmine before we go over to yours? Or we can do the question part also later.
I think, yeah, let's do the question part later. And let's start the discussion then after I gave a short introduction of what Flip is doing.
Go ahead. Just quick comment to the. I know some people newly joined. Really, everybody who wants, who's shy, just write me an email, and I'll get you in touch with the people who wants. Please request, and we'll get you on stage, or just ask your questions in the chat. But really, if you want to join the discussion, you can join us if you want. And with that, Ann-Kathrin, tell us more about Flip.
Yeah. I'm really excited for the discussion in a couple of minutes, because just this morning we hosted a webinar where we were talking about frontline worker empowerment in retail, and why communication is very important for retail employees. So I guess our conversation after I give an introduction of Flip will go in the same direction, and excited for that. But with that, okay, I'm going to share. You should see my slides now.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So we are Flip, and we're the employee app for better internal communication. And our vision is to empower every employee. And I mean, with our app, basically, an employer can inform all his employees with just 2 clicks. And that simple, efficient, and without any papers that are put on blackboards or stuff. And the way we think about communication comes from when we look into how people communicate with each other, then we have to say that there's an evolution of internal communication. And for desktop workers, probably for most of us sitting here today, communication has changed massively over the past 50 years. So it starts with the fax in the 60s, then the first computer in the 80s. Everyone or some of us might remember the first phones and Palm and BlackBerry phones that we had in the years 2000 and following. And now today we're all talking about working remotely. We're all working with our smartphones, our laptops, from wherever we want and wherever we want. And we can access communication and information about our employer, about everything that's relevant for our work from everywhere and at any time. I think most likely we all have the problem that we have too many tools, which we have to check when it comes to internal communication, but also video conferencing tools. Every time I join a video conference, I basically have to download an additional tool, emails, all these kind of things, and also the Microsoft tools. And there's an ubiquity of tools and ways of communicating for us, for the desktop workers, while on the other hand, the non-desktop workers, which actually make up 80% of global workforce, they still rely on old school communication methods such as blackboards or terminals in production facilities. And this is in many cases, this is their only way of getting information about their employer. The other alternative would be private messengers. Those are most companies don't really like their employees working with private messengers because they're not the data privacy is not given, and also they are not GDPR compliant. But this is the way communication works for non-desktop workers, for frontline workers. And we trust, and one of our professors put it in a nice way. He said, hey, companies today are using yesterday's tools to communicate with tomorrow's generation. And what we do at Flip is we are on a mission to kind of close this gap, because we think that digital transformation and new digital processes, most of the cases, they are targeted to making operational work more efficient. So we implement new tools, new work processes, new AI tools and stuff, mostly in the areas where the workers are working on frontline jobs, and to kind of like give them the handbooks on how to use these tools, like basically what SwipeGuide is doing. Many companies still do that paper-based, and that doesn't only cost time and money, but it's also not very sustainable. And this is what Flip does. And so we're combining and we're bringing the entire company in one app, mobile first. Mobile first doesn't mean it's not also possible to use the app on a desktop, but we trust that the future will be mobile first, and people are going to rely more heavily on using their smartphones. And so what we do is we take your brand and your design and put it into an app that every employee can access on their smartphones. And you as an employer are able to reach all your employees for the very first time via push notification in real time, and share top-down information at any time and to every employee who has to get the information. Also, you will be able, like basically we're combining email, Blackboard, private messengers, and all tools that are currently more or less being used, the intranet, and putting it on a newsfeed where every employee gets exactly the information he or she needs, the information that's relevant to him. Meaning, if you are working in Stuttgart, you're working for a multinational corporation with headquarters in Stuttgart, but you also have offices in Mexico and China, then you will get the information for the overall company, also for Germany probably, and then for Stuttgart and for your specific shift maybe, but you won't see what's happening in the factory in Shenzhen or anywhere in any other places around the world, just because this information is not relevant for you. And then there's the option to also for the employees to like and comment your posts, to interact with the company, and to give kind of like feedback also. And that's something that in my personal opinion, can't be stressed enough how important this kind of like interaction also is, because we see it with one of our large retail customers. They have over 30,000 employees all using the app, and they have one group where the employees are sharing feedback on new products, on in general about processes that are going well, that are not going not so well, and also customer feedback. And on the one hand side, the employees have the feeling that they are being heard. On the other hand, the employer for the first time has access to what's actually going on on the shop floor. And so I think the interaction possibility can't be stressed enough. And then obviously there's also a chat where employees can mix and mingle. Daniel, you have a question?
Yeah, I just can double that. I mean, I'm not at the. I think we're allowed to name the retail, but I was 10 years in retail at Aldi, and when you said a group where you can provide feedback, we had no way to provide feedback in anything. And I mean, Aldi is known for have this military hierarchy. So yeah, there was no way to give any feedback on anything, and also this crowd knowledge was very, very much needed there. Even though you think this is a very streamlined, I mean, it doesn't get more simple than an Aldi store, but yet, whenever I worked in another store, not in my main store, so when I had somewhere, I discovered little things which really improved productivity on our end. So really little examples which help so much to speed things up. Anyway, that's just a comment. Anne-Kathrin, what I actually wanted to ask you, why put my mic off, is you said the employees can use it on their phone. How is this going? I know you have that people can use it on their personal phones, but what about employees? How well is that going? If employees don't want to use their own phone and they never got a company phone, how do you handle that? I could imagine retail is often the case.
Yeah, it's funny that you are asking specifically for retail, because yes, we're a bring your own device solution. I mean, obviously you can use the app on any device you want. You can also put it on your work phone if you have one. Many of the retailers that we work with, they have tablets already that they put in their break rooms or in the lunch rooms, and so people can access the app there. You can also set it up on terminals or on computers in the production hall or wherever you want to. But the fact that you said in retail, many people they are not willing to download and install an app on their phone. It's funny because especially in retail, we have usage rates of 97% and higher of daily active users.
Wow.
Because they're in retail, and that was this is in Edeka actually, and there the app is an essential part of the daily work. So the people, when they come to work in the morning, they check the app, they exchange, if a customer comes to the Edeka and asks, hey, where can I find, the noodles that I saw in the brochure, and you can, instead of, if you don't know where to find them, instead of running around trying to find them in the storage or asking colleagues, you can just drop a message to your colleagues and ask them. And that's something that's, especially in retail, it's an essential part of the daily working routine. And that is why we don't have, there's no issues with people's willingness to use the app there. Because it provides value, right?
Yeah, actually, now that you say it, I could really imagine, when I think about my old colleagues, and, I started working there in 2004, and, it happened so many times, and that would be also part of Flip, I guess, that, if there's a new, let's say, and in 2004, everything Aldi did was newsworthy. So, people read in the newspaper that the next day we're going to sell airplane tickets for the first time, and it was all over the news. And you didn't know it. You were sitting in the store. Every customer, hey, you're selling that tomorrow. I'm like, I don't know. And they show you the newspaper back then. Like, okay, why does nobody tell us? So the customer always knows first. And if that happens 3 times, you might think, well, I'm just a Flip app now. So,
yeah.
But sorry, we're still in your pitch. I want to ask Willemijn now how it's going for them. But I guess in your case, it's often at your use cases, people have phones. The company also device.
Yeah, I think that's. I also raised the question here in the chat. I'm curious what our listeners are applying in their businesses. What we come across absolutely is that companies have issues with the device strategy, especially in manufacturing. Mobile devices are not standardly issued. So mostly we help companies figure out their device strategy, and we recommend special ruggedized devices for the manufacturing floors. But yeah, I do recognize that what Anne Catherine is saying, we're trying to communicate with tools and technologies from the past, and let's chat more about this when you've walked through your presentation.
Yeah, I think I'll be done soon. Yeah, basically.
No worries.
I don't have many slides left. Yeah, so I think this is one very important thing to stress out, that if the content is relevant and people find what they're looking for in an app or in a tool, then usage rates will also be high. And then one thing that also sets us apart from other markets on the app is that we are offline capable, meaning, and that's something that's also very special to retail, but I guess also production. In many of these facilities, reception is quite bad and low. And then what's important, if you use a new tool or you introduce a new tool, that it's actually capable to deliver the content that it's supposed to deliver also when you're offline. And so you can write texts, you can send them while you're offline, and then they will be transmitted once you're online again. That's something that you might all be familiar with from WhatsApp, but in many cases, apps today, they don't always offer that functionality. And Here you can basically see 3 of the companies that we work with, Mahle, Magna, and Porsche, all of them not so small. And we are building their own apps for their companies. So the app comes in their design or in your design, including company logos, colors, and much more. And so the employee actually always knows where to find the relevant information. In the menu, you can include different additional tools such as shift plans or to-dos. And this is basically the central hub for all employee-related topics. And so you would access the Mahle app and from there be able to tap into different areas, like into the news feed, into the chat, into your tasks, and in everything that's related to communication and HR. And this is something I mentioned before already. Obviously, the app is available mobile and on desktop or in tablets. And you can access it from any device at any time and also access it from 2 devices at the same time. Few things about us as a company. We are located in Stuttgart. We are one of the fastest growing companies in Europe. We have many customers, some logos you might recognize here. And we're one of the top 3 providers for internal communication in Europe. And over 90% of employees actually do feel better informed and more connected to their companies when they're using Flip. And I think some of the companies or their partners we work with, I already mentioned, Mahle, Magna, Porsche. We are also very proud to now have Tom as a partner and working with Rossmann, Rewe, and Edeka. It's like really cool companies. And I'm excited to be here today and to answer all your questions and to kick off the discussion now.
All right, thanks, Anne-Kathrin.
Daniel,
by the way, can we announce the other one?
Oh yeah.
The other one?
Just one last question. That might be interesting, but I don't know if it's allowed to announce. But you basically you said it on LinkedIn.
What? We didn't say it yet. It will be announced next week, Tuesday. But
okay.
I guess
who's interested, check out the LinkedIn, and it says I'm loving it. You put it on LinkedIn, I can say it. And
So we won McDonald's as a major brand as well as a customer, and we will announce it next week. But for the select people in here, I'm already sharing the news. Yeah.
Congratulations! That's a huge account to land. Well done.
Thank you.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So you should definitely cooperate on this manuals, because I guess at McDonald's you have a ton of manuals. How to do a burger, all this machinery, lots of fluctuation. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great. I saw there's a question in the chat, and I think it might be nice if we pick them up. And there's a question from Patrick Boyle, and I thought it would be good for me to answer it. I think this is continuing the conversation around device strategy. What we see in the manufacturing environment that we mostly work into, field service engineering, we do just a little bit of retail, is that, yes, we've come across several situations where mobile devices were restricted or forbidden for safety and confidentiality purposes. However, I think it's about engaging in a conversation. What is the transition? So what are the safety prerequisites that you want to ensure? What we generally see is the operating of the devices. So then we recommend and we bring in wearable devices. So we are applicable to RealWear ruggedized smart glasses. There's also issues around safety, confidentiality of information, and that you can also resolve with tools like geofencing of materials or other removal of materials once you leave the premises. And I think that's also elements that Anne mentioned in her conversation as well. So I think the short answer is yes, but there's a way around it, and that still delivers you as a company the safety prerequisites to keep your workforce safe, and for yourselves the security that your confidential data is safe and sound.
Yeah, actually, we have the same restriction even here in the building on the shop floor. I guess that's something very common. Patrick, you want to reveal what company you work for? Not a must, but also if you have more to add, feel free to press the blue button and you can join us. Yeah. How is it usually, Wilhelmine, one more question on that. You say your tool can be used by employees. You're from DXC, CPG and auto clients. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Again, if you want to join us. Wilhelmine, so you said your tool depends a lot also on the employees creating manuals. How is the split? I hope better than Wikipedia, where probably 0.1% of people write something and the rest is reading the articles. But how many people do really contribute to manuals?
So a very good question. We have we're nearly checking the box of 7,000 content creators in the platform, which means in general, around about 20% of the workforce within a specific site is contributing to the content. But I'd have to say that 20% is the number that's mainly creating the materials. As a user, you can also give feedback and improvement tips. So you see a operating procedure, you notice that a vital visual is missing, and then in that point of time, you can just tick a box, take a picture, and send it off back to the content owner, and that adds up another 10% of the usage. So we really see that with our platform, and that's actually what we want to, of course, stimulate. Is currently a lot of expert knowledge is held hostage in your mind. It's called silent knowledge, and it resides in the minds of senior operators that know how to do things, and it doesn't translate onto the next generation. And the next generation is confronted with old-fashioned information they don't know how to interact with. I think with our platform we can unify them both, and that is what we see happening most in the sites that we work with. It's also used as a tool to unify two generations of types of workers within one app, and collectively build the digital library, so to say.
Do you see a question to both? It's quite interesting. One might think, and I don't know how old you are, Patrick, but on Startup Autobahn, interesting. Some of our corporate partners, the most engaged colleagues are the ones almost in retirement age. How is it for you guys? So with engaged, I mean really driving pilots, coming to our events, and then really trying to do collaborations with startups. How is the usage on your apps? Is it more? I would guess the younger workforce. I guess it would be the general guess, but maybe there's also a surprise here that the older workforce prefers using the app, if you have any data on it. Whoever wants to go first.
Right, I'll hop in. So what we see is that there's a difference between driving driving the process and the usage. So when you look at the types of clients we work most with, we usually start with a champion in one specific factory that's driving a use case, and they usually need let's say a project sponsor somewhere in the organization. What we see is that, and I didn't mean to say old and young, but we've seen that tech-savvy brains that have been exposed a lot to technologies work differently than the non-tech-savvy brains, and that's kind of like the differentiation that we see. And then we see that in most of our customers, the tech-savvy generation, a little bit younger usually, if you want to generalize it, are driving the actual usage of the product. And it's more, let's say, people that are more in a senior position usually that have the ability to sponsor projects like this.
Okay, and Anne-Catherine, I'm very, very strong. I would bet money that the younger generation actually is that correct? You're on mute.
Yeah, so you were breaking up, but I guess the question was younger generation understands Flip better?
Higher usage, yeah.
Okay, higher usage. Actually, probably a little bit, but the usability of the tool is designed in a way that is very intuitive to use for people from every age class. And we tested out, funnily enough, with our grandparents. And if they know how to use the app and to maneuver through the app, then we know it's easy enough. Because it's true that many people, especially in our target group or the user group that we're targeting, they are not as tech savvy. Like, you have to separate between the youngsters that are very tech savvy and the older generation, but we want to engage all of them. And that's why we put a lot of emphasis on building the product in a way that it's very intuitive to use. And that leads to also high usage rates among older employees. And I think that's also the key to success here, because you don't want to. We're trying to bridge a gap, right? The communication gap, where one part of the company is super well informed, the other one not informed at all. And what we don't want to do is to create another gap where the younger generation feels like they're very much included and they know everything that's going on, and the older generation feels left behind. So we don't want to, jump from one gap to another one and create another major issue inside, like in the communication structure. And that's why that's one of our main focuses, to keep the app as simple and as intuitive as possible, so that you don't need onboarding workshops and trainings for people to use the app. And so that's on that end. And then you were also asking about champions in the company. I wouldn't say that the champions in our partners, they're always young. There's many people, like many champions are actually more of a little bit older and more experienced generation. And the reason for that to be the case is that they know that this has been an issue for a long time. And they have probably also colleagues in the same age range that don't feel well included and informed. While the youngsters, for them, it's normal to communicate with 5 different tools at the same time simultaneously, and sharing information, spreading the word, clicking through digital learning sessions, and so on. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Speaking about, well, let's. I just think that's fun, and we said we just want to have a coffee chat together. So what I love about chatting is the future, educated guesses about the future. I mean, that's the core of ventures probably. But what do you think is the, like, you work with this frontline workers. What do you think is because everybody speaks about future of work, but they always think about their bubble. Everybody here in the chat probably we the bubble with using Slack and having email accounts in our companies and sitting in the office. But what do you think is the future of the frontline workforce? If there's any, I mean, that's not your core. I know, like that depends a lot on things like 3D printing and automation and what else. But do you see anything already? Do you already see any shift? And do you prepare on, let's say, 2030? How is how does McDonald's, for example, will look like then? Any guesses? I know it's a super difficult question. We can skip it.
No. Let's answer that question.
Okay.
But I simply can't say how McDonald's will look like in 2030 or in 30 years from now, because I am not working in a strategy department. But what I can say is, we are having this conversation about the future of work, home office, remote work. I myself am a big fan of remote work. But at the same time, not every employee will be able to work remotely. And that's why I think that in the future, communication and collaboration tools that kind of like bridge the gap between those working remotely and the ones that can't work remotely are essential. And the way I see it is that there's a lot of talking going on about AI and automation and like everything that makes work more efficient. But I think that the human will be put into the focus again of digitization. So I think we will be talking about a humanized digitization in 10 years from now, because let's face it, there will be always humans involved in also in processes, and some people have to kind of like use the new machines, the new tools, and so there will be humans there. And we can already see that there's a war for talent also in frontline worker occupation, even though jobs are getting like cut, and there will probably be way less frontline workers in 10 years from now than they are today. But still, I think that focus will be on the human in the center of digitization, and on how to kind of like also enable this human being to have a working experience. So an employer will be much more than an employer. An employer in the future will be an experience designer for their employees. And they have to kind of like come up with new ideas of how to make working for this company, for the company as an employer, more attractive, and how to keep good talent. And that's my perspective on the future of work.
And I think building up on that, interesting that you were saying that. I agree fundamentally. So I think the future of work will be radically human driven, especially in the industry that we work in. We've all seen that companies that start off with a fully digital twin design fail in rolling out step by step improvements towards digitalization. If you look at future of work, especially in manufacturing, we will see that the front line will be changing roles. So Deloitte expects that I think 60% of frontline workers will be impacted in the type of job that they have. They don't feel that jobs will be lost. We also don't see that. We do feel that jobs will be transformed and frontline workers will be more connected. So frontline workers will need to be instantly productive. We already see that trend happening. We already see that there's less training, there's less educating involved. So which means frontline workers will be highly augmented when they go work at the front lines. They will be highly connected and given information just in time to do their work. And we believe that the digital skill set for the future worker in the manufacturing environment will be rather high. So the reskilling of workers, I think, is a trend that we are already preparing for. And then really when you look out, let's say 2030, we are looking at, okay, how can we make sure that the decisions that we do in our products today and the R&D strategy that we've sent in can help us identify what that 2030 vision looks like. Because we believe that, for example, at SwipeGuide, we are working towards a digital twin of a human worker. So how can we develop knowledge in a way that you can instantly make it accessible and productive in the human brain? And how is the augmentation going to look like in a safe environment that you still have you need to take into account in the manufacturing industry? So you can look at things as, now we're working towards smart glasses, but what is the next step? What are smart lenses? Motion control is the step after voice operating, for example. And these are all projects that we run in our R&D teams to really understand and how to figure out on that dot on the horizon, a digital twin of a human worker. What should that look like, and how is that impactful for the manufacturing environment?
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Since we I was thinking about giving my opinion on it. I think I don't have such a positive outlook on the future, but Ann-Kathrin, there's an interesting question for you in the chat. So let's rather pick up that one maybe to the end, and then maybe let's shout out from both of you. Who are your typical contacts within corporations. So if someone is interested or wants to connect you with someone, who would that be typically? But Ann-Kathrin, Patrick is asking, does Flip enable communication of links to other content/apps? Example would be sending out a link for completing something on an HR or learning platform.
Yeah, so really good question, Patrick. Something I didn't show in the presentation here is the menu, but I just quickly mentioned it. In the menu, you have the possibility to integrate additional tools. So integrate HR softwares, integrate task lists, shift plans, etc. And I think that should answer the question. Yes, you're able to also link other content, other apps inside the app, and kind of like have Flip. Flip would be your central hub for all employee topics, be it HR or comms related. And then from there, you're either able to link other apps and jump out of Flip, or you can even open all this stuff inside the app. Inside the app, that would be, in your case, the DXC app, I assume. So you could do everything in one central place. Yes.
I see a future vision, Anne. I see your customers working with the Flip app and then connecting to digital SOPs with SwipeGuide and hopping back in to see what's next on their shift.
That's something that I was thinking about before as well when you gave your pitch and sharing your vision. We should definitely talk about that in the future.
Absolutely. Daniel, you did make me curious about your doomed vision for the future. I am curious to learn, what is your opinion on what the future of work is going to look like?
Okay, if you really want it, then
yes, you made us curious.
Full of doom. No, I'm just. I think there's like I'm a tech optimist at the one hand. On the other hand, I think we will approach really rough times for many people. So if we take the McDonald's example, we also, I mean, back then they pivoted. So back then it wasn't even not a use case, but now they're basically automating the drive-throughs. And I know also Patrick, DXC has a project automating drive-throughs. So for example, if you automate a drive-through in the US, the average restaurant saves $25,000 a year. So that's the first step. You can already see what McDonald's did with this. You order on a screen, which is very interesting, by the way. Look up use cases, case studies on that. It's super interesting how much more sales they do, because they can do all this psychology is part of it now, and they suggest you over things. So that already took away jobs. And now the last step is basically automating the kitchen, which is, of course, way harder. But at one point that will also come. But nevertheless, already now we have automated drive-throughs very soon. And I know McDonald's is also working on that. And then we already, the people taking your order are gone already. So if you then add, truck drivers and all of those, I don't think we can for it were enough jobs in other areas. Certainly, I mean, there are always other jobs. We see all the quick commerce at the moment popping up with Gorillas and Co. So there are many new jobs for an unskilled workforce. But yeah, I'm a bit fearful that will not be enough. But
that's interesting.
Maybe to add on.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, maybe to end on a positive note, Will, I mean, will give you the last word.
I just wanted to say that I think that with every automation process, we have yet to figure out what in some cases, what the benefits are. And yes, McDonald's will save $25,000 a year per restaurant with an automated drive-through. But I just want to roll back to a fully automated car manufacturing plant that started using, I think they installed 1,000 robots, and then they had to triple the field service engineering team to help resolve all the issues with the robots. So I think that the future is not as gloomy and doomy as you seem it to be. But I do feel that the frontline workforce will have to massively reskill to capitalize on the skills that they have in a different way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just fear that maybe it's just hiccups now, and in the future it will take more and more over. But we'll see. That's the fun thing about ventures and the thing about the future. A couple of years later, we will know.
You know how we had this discussion 4 or 5 years ago about AAVs?
Yes, too early.
And how we will replace all drivers by 2024, 2025, and then 2 years into that topic, diving deep into the topic, we started to realize that it might take a little longer because there are quite some minor, tiny little obstacles that might prevent fully autonomous vehicles in the very close future. So I think it's always funny how when talking about trends and predicting the future, how people can be very wrong about their predictions and sometimes very right. So take the space flights that are happening now. In some cases it goes like very fast towards new maybe trends. I don't know if this would be a trend, but sometimes it takes a little longer than what we expect, and we can always paint doomsday scenarios, or we take it as it comes and see it as a bright future ahead. And I think that's the better option.
And that's also perfect last words. So let's end on a positive note. And by the way, I love to be right, but in this case, I would love to be wrong. So let's see. All right, guys. It was fun chatting. Actually, we thought we maybe do 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but it was fun. We took the full hour. Really cool. Thank you for joining. And again, if you want to be in touch, look up Anne and William on LinkedIn, or just contact me, and I'll get you in touch.
Thank you, guys.
All right. With that, have fun on Expo.
All right. Thank you. Have fun.
Bye, everybody.